Welcome to the Digital Responsibility Podcast. There is a vibrant community around the world exploring how we drive forward digital innovation, products and services, and generally exploit technology progression for the sustained benefit of society and the planet. On this podcast, you will hear from me, Christopher Joynson, and Rob Price, two of the original founders of Corporate Digital Responsibility, as we speak to our guests to hear their stories and piece together what it means to be responsible in the digital age. If you'd like to learn more, take a look at the website, corporatedigitalresponsibility.net.
Hello and welcome to this start of Series 5 of the Digital Responsibility Podcast. Today we're doing a slightly more informal discussion between Rob and I about a bit of a reflection on where we've been and recent series, and a look forward at the exciting things ahead for the CDR community and for the next series that we're just starting today. So Rob, Series 5, we've come quite a long way since we began this maybe 2 years or so ago now. Did you think we'd make it to a fifth series?
You never know, do you? It's one of those. I mean, it was a pandemic kickoff idea, wasn't it? It was kind of how do we find a way of talking to really interesting people around the world about the things that they're so passionate about and driving change in things that really matter, and in a time when we couldn't actually get out and speak to them. So Zoom became everyone's friend, and I think. No, we couldn't have possibly kind of thought that we would have had a whole set of fantastic conversations and kept coming back for more. But we have, and there've been some amazing conversations and some amazing people. And I've loved all of that kind of contribution that people have made, and really excited about the set of conversations that we've got lined up, hopefully over the next couple of months.
Absolutely. And we, as you say, we've had some amazing conversations along the way. A couple of highlights from my recent memory. I thought our conversation with Ken Banks in Series 4 was, I mean, what an inspiring man. The things he's gone through and the things he's achieved. I thought that was really inspiring. And then Joe Toscano really made me change my perspective on a few things, and it maybe shed a bit of light on parts of the industry that I wasn't otherwise aware of. So that was amazing. Any highlights from yourself?
Well, I mean, I've just got to add, I mean, both Ken and Joe were fantastic, well worth listening to. I think Ken's probably the only person we've had twice on the podcast as well, because he came in on an earlier season. So always a delight to listen to him. I thought the conversation we had with Robbie Stam was amazing. I clearly remember having this conversation with him at the time, talking about an experience he'd had talking to his mate Douglas Adams after Douglas's death. So it was regenerated by AI, and it was a conversation about how realistic that was. And it just seems so topical now when we're kind of in the midst of this Gen AI wave of kind of so many things happening so quickly. Then that was such a brilliant conversation. It's a difficult conversation. I mean, but quite inspiring to hear that practical experience. I remember Sarah's 14 million laptops lying around in homes and 1 million kids without a laptop in the pandemic. I mean, that was a horrendous statistic. I don't know what it is today. Obviously, since then we've had Paul Finnis talking about the work of the Digital Poverty Alliance as well, and there's a number of people very much focused around trying to improve that position. And then of course maybe to just mention the last one as well. I thought it would be really interesting to have a conversation with a large language model Gen AI entrepreneur CEO and a For Humanity AI auditor, thinking at the start, oh my God, kind of are they going to fight? But I loved the conversation. We just kept talking and talking and talking. So again, I know that one was kind of quite popular with people who listened to it as well. They were all, I mean, I loved them all. And I'm no doubt that somebody will be sat somewhere going, "Why haven't you mentioned such and such?" Well, I'll mention them all, but we can't fit them all into the time.
No, it's true. No, we'll try and hold ourselves back from that, but some really memorable moments throughout. Absolutely. And it's a sign of really how far the corporate digital responsibility community has progressed over the time as well. I know there's some new exciting things happening at the moment. Do you want to share with us a bit about that?
Well, I think one of the things that I've seen over the last 12 months, even the last 6 months, is a significant increase in the conversations around CDR outside of the heartland of Central Europe. I mean, we've said from the start, Germany, France, Switzerland, Austria have been talking about CDR, or in France, RNE, for much of that time. I loved going to Norway a few months ago to kind of talk about CDR there, and I've seen what they've been doing ever since around digital Samsung Sansvar, digital social responsibility, which is brilliant to see. But I've had emails from Bangladesh, from Singapore. I've seen the work that Jochen Wirtz has been doing out in Singapore. So it seems as though CDR is beginning to be more described, more used more. The thing that I think it's not so much is, what are organizations actually doing to change and transform, and how do you do that? So there's lots of thinking, lots of writing, lots of discussing, but how do you actually execute change? And I think what we're trying to do with the initiative that we launched this week, the CDR Marketplace, is just find an effective way to connect some of the innovative scale-up startups, businesses that are delivering products and services that support change and transformation around one or more of the principles, to those organizations that are beginning to ask the question of, what do I do then? How do I go about that change? And the intention of the marketplace is, it's Principle 5. It's the first part of Principle 5, to hook into ecosystems of ecotech, clean tech, other tech solutions that help you have a positive impact on the world, and the people that live on it. And we're trying to bring that to life. So we've gone live this week. There's a number of promoted partners that have been listed. But we've also got linked partners and managed partners. It's 3 different ways, dependent on the degree of touch, the degree of effort, connecting those organizations with the demand that I see increasingly out there. So I think it's quite exciting. I think there's quite a bit of interest in it. And the proof of it will be when we can then talk on future podcasts about some of the work that it's then enabled, some of the changes that it's then enabled. And I'll give you one example on actually that we've got lined up, which is a great example of that.
Sure, absolutely. I remember at the start we were talking about how can we expect people to be responsible for something that they don't fully understand, and then eventually buy into. And so, as you've just described, I think we've really started to take a lot of companies on that journey, and hopefully we'll continue to bring the rest of them along with us. But go on then. Spoiler free. Any hints you can give us about what's in store for Series 5? Because I know you've got some conversations lined up already.
Well, I think I'm not going to go in order. So
Sure.
let's start with the one that I just touched on. So Risolvo is a Italian Tuscany-based consultancy business. They've written articles on the site before. Jessica, who's kind of been involved, and I've collaborated on a paper which will hopefully be published in the not too distant future. But they're doing a really interesting piece of work, which is to lead on an EU-funded piece of research over the next 4 years around CDR within the public sector and public policy across 7 countries in Europe. Now, I think that's kind of fascinating. I mean, it was brilliant to be involved in the kickoff session, albeit remotely, that was in Italy, kind of not too long ago, and that's covering Italy, Hungary, Romania, Finland, France, Catalan region of Spain, and Ireland. So we're going to have a conversation with Jessica in terms of leading that work, but actually also one of the countries that's involved, who's not been too involved so far with CDR. So it's an early stage view, but then kind of maybe later on in the season to come back with the work having progressed a bit more. It's very focused around relevance to the SME population as well. So I think it's kind of really important for many organisations out there. So I'm quite excited by that one. I'm the one next week. All fingers crossed. I think it's going to be great because it's to catch up with the team from Norway. It's Go For It team, kind of part of IKT Norge, which is the tech association in Norway. So we're going to talk to a number of people that have been involved in that work that's been happening over the last few months, and since kind of I went a few months ago as well, to see how Norwegian businesses, tech and otherwise, are picking up on the CDR manifesto and their variation of it. So I'm looking forward to that. I've been fascinated by it's a clothing company, a tech clothing company that uses tech innovation around materials, and they do it from a sustainability and from a climate and from a future innovation standpoint. And I'm really looking forward to a conversation with the founders from Volleyback coming up in a few weeks, because I find it, I mean, it's one of the things that we often talk about in terms of sustainability in clothing, and circular economy and what that might mean, and throwaway fashions. Well, they're coming at it from a very different perspective. So I'm really interested, and that's different for us, isn't it? It's a different angle, but it's a really important angle to envision what we might need as we move forward through the next kind of few decades. I think I had a brilliant conversation with somebody who'll be another guest about digital well-being, and I think that's another topic. I mean, part of Principle 3 that is ever more important, ever more emphasised through the pandemic, both physically and mentally. How do we ensure that we or our customers, if I'm a business, are best enabled to find time for their well-being and their fitness and their health? And there's a number of different angles to that, but I'm really looking forward to the conversation with Ileana around that. And then there's a really interesting conversation that we're going to have around measuring the tech impact, and the impact of tech. And we can do that in lots of different ways, whether it's carbon or whether it's energy use or waste and recycled materials. But we've got two fantastic guests lined up to come and talk to us around that, which will all be about Principle 7, but also about that handshake, about how do you kind of understand the potential positive impacts that can be achieved through the application of that tech, such that it outweighs of maybe some of the negative impacts of that tech too. So it's that equation of kind of some of the things that are quite hard to measure, and some of the things that are more kind of established to measure, and some of the standards that are appearing now, global standards that are appearing to help us in that equation. So I thought, I mean, that's about 6 that we've got lined up for the next few weeks. I think that's a really exciting set of conversations. We're going to be touching on UK, US, Norway, Italy, Romania in that set of conversations, and it's one of the things that I think was really important to me is to talk to the rest of the world about the really cool things that they're doing, and to share it with the rest of the world so that they can kind of adopt and the things that sound as though they might have a real impact.
Indeed, in that sample you've just given us, there's quite the variety globally, but also industry-wise as well. From clothing to sustainability and well-being, it's quite the variety you've just shared with us. So I'm excited. Hopefully everyone listening is as well. Thank you for listening to this, just a short podcast this time. We really look forward to you joining us for future discussions. Thank you.
Thanks, Christopher, and look forward to the set of conversations coming up.